Tiny video cameras have changed a lot within the world we live in. When regular people wanted to record video back when the original camcorders were made available to the public, the machines were often big and bulky and a bit difficult to take with you everywhere. These days, video recording devices are so small that they're able to be placed anywhere, allowing for some pretty epic footage from time to time. With all that said, today we'll be checking out the 7 scariest things people have caught on GoPro cameras, part 2. Number 7, up close and personal. We'll start today off with some footage that comes from the GoPro of a kayaker out in Norway in September of 2019. Joachim Larsen, a diver who was out one morning on the calm waters of Hammerfest Bay, had come into contact with a local and very tame beluga whale that was being extra curious. A beluga whale, which can grow up to about 14 feet long and live for up to about 50 years, was extra inquisitive this morning, and while the diver was cruising through on his kayak, the curious whale began rubbing up against the boat. Now, at this point, this kayaker must be aware that the animal, which was acting in a very docile nature, must have had some sort of previous interaction with human beings, and ultimately assumed that the beluga whale had previously been trained. Anyway, while the whale was getting up close and personal with the man on the tiny boat, it accidentally knocked the GoPro camera from the mount on the side of the boat down into the water. The camera then travels all the way down to the floor before one of the most miraculous things happens. The beluga whale, who goes by the name of Vladimir, by the way, went down and not only retrieved the camera, but also returned it to its rightful owner. Who knew some animals could have such kind hearts? Now, before we move on, check out this image taken from an unknown person's GoPro camera not too long ago. What the heck is happening here? While someone's riding their motorcycle through the woods, some strange being clearly is standing in the middle of the road. And when you look close, there's some pretty strange arms, or I don't know what those are, poking out from either side of the person standing in the path. What the heck are those? And who the heck is that? Very, very weird, but is it real? We'll let you be the judge of that, and you can let us know how you feel by commenting below. And while you do that, we'll go ahead and get things back on track for the rest of today's show. Number 6, 250 feet. We'll move things right along. Up next, we'll talk about some of the scariest footage that I've ever seen and something that displays why it's so important for you to pay extra close attention whenever you're riding on a motorcycle. A guy named Matthew Murray made national news in the summer of 2017 when he was riding along through the Santa Monica Mountains with his GoPro hitched to the front of his bike. While weaving along the curves of the infamous road, the bike rider lost some traction on loose gravel, and then the unthinkable happens. He goes over a cliff and plunges more than 250 feet down into a ravine. Unfortunately for Matt, he landed in a spot that wasn't very viewable by drivers on the highway, so it's a real wonder that he made it out of there alive. At the end of the day, he suffered a bunch of broken bones, but luckily for him, he still had his life. You can hear him screaming out for help as he laid helpless on the side of the road. Help! But ultimately managed to pull himself back up the hill, flagged down a driver, and had them call 911. This just goes as a stark reminder to everyone that rides motorcycles that you've got to be extra careful on those things, and always, always wear your helmet. Number 5, Jacob Childs. So we opened today's show with a story about a whale and a kayaker. However, the whale was pretty calm, so the experience wasn't too bad for the person recording it. This next story takes place out in open water. However, this time around, things got a lot scarier for the guy involved. Jacob Childs is a scuba diver that was doing some underwater exploring about 30 miles off the coast of Australia back in the summer of 2016. While swimming around underwater, the current took him much further from his boat and equipment than he originally anticipated. And when he came back up, he realized that he had no idea where all his stuff was. So he began swimming in the direction that he thought was correct, but ultimately wasn't. And he found himself getting further and further away from where he was supposed to be going. And after tiring himself out, he realized that he no longer knew where he was, and also had the realization that he may never be found again. So he pulled out his GoPro video camera and began filming what he assumed at the time would be his final moments. Ultimately, however, and luckily for him, these weren't his final moments, as about 6 hours later, a rescue helicopter located some of Jacob's equipment and ultimately was able to spot and retrieve the lost driver. A wonderful end to an otherwise super scary story. Oh, and one more thing. The scuba gear that Jacob was wearing literally saved his life, because if he didn't have it on, he most certainly would have fallen victim to hypothermia. Number 4. Stuntman. While much of our favorite action movie footage nowadays comes from CGI or computer-generated images, a lot of the fighting scenes are real, though they're typically just played out by trained professionals, who are otherwise known as stunt doubles. These stunt men and women are all about making things look as real as possible, and are oftentimes the most athletic and most brave people on the set. So what do stuntmen do in their downtime? Well, some of them actually continuously train throughout the day, sharpening their skills and learning how to make the most physical and brutal actions on the big screen seem seamless. Check out some footage from professional stuntman Ethan Swanson, who, while hanging out in Chicago, Illinois, gets up the courage to take some epic video of him doing some pretty epic rooftop stunts, which included him jumping from an apartment roof, sliding onto the roof of a house, before leaping from that and landing in a spiral staircase. Whoa! And you can even see the holes in his pants after they were literally burned out during the sliding part of the jump. Talk about being super brave and, well, I guess even sorta super stupid as well. Number 3. Scary base jump. A base jump, for those who don't know, is parachuting or even wingsuit flying from a fixed structure, like a building or a cliff. Base stands for building, antenna, span, or earth, and this is an activity that thrill seekers really enjoy. After all, it allows the thrill of flying down to earth without the added expense of getting up in the sky via airplane. Oftentimes, though, base jumpers will tell you that the most thrilling part of the jump is actually the climb to the base that they're jumping off of, and you can clearly see this in the next example. Check it out. Andrew Toyer and Mick Hill climbed this daunting antenna over in Europe and then scooted their way out to where they were jumping from on this thin beam. How scary does this look? They made it out there okay and made the jump successful, but clearly noted that the flying back down to earth was the easy part. The climb, especially in this case, was much more difficult. Number 2. Ontake Mountain. Before we move on, gotta send a quick shout out to Mary Ranch, who just the other day, after checking out one of our most recent episodes, left us a pretty amazing comment and even told us to keep up the good work. And that's exactly what we plan on doing. Thanks for the love, Mary. This next image is super scary, and for good reason. Also captured by GoPro back in late September of 2014, the Ontake Mountain on the island of Honshu, Japan, the island's volcano, erupted without warning, sending many hikers into a frenzy. The eruption was strange in that no one knew it was coming, and with the nice weather, dozens of people were set out to come out and explore. You can see in this image just how much smoke, dust, and ash was ejected into the air. Luckily for most travelers, there weren't too many serious injuries. However, just the thought of being this close to a live, active, erupting volcano rubbed plenty of people the wrong way, I'm sure. Do you want to get a shout out in one of our daily videos? Well, don't forget to drop a comment down below with the hashtag Supreme Family. Tomorrow could be your day. Now, let's get back to the topic. Number 1, shark attack. So we've traveled out to the water a few times here today. We may as well end with one more trip down into the deep blue sea. This time around, we're out near Santa Barbara, California, where Tyler McQuillan, an avid spearfisher, was down in the water hoping to catch himself a big fish. Well, he got a little more than he bargained for this day, because Tyler ran into every spearfisher's worst nightmare, a huge great white shark that appeared to be a little hungry. You can see Tyler had a GoPro mounted onto a spear gun, and out of nowhere, the massive shark swims eerily close. The 22-year-old student actually felt the shark before he saw it, as the story goes that Tyler thought that his college buddies were pranking him by grabbing his feet, but as it turns out, what Tyler felt was the shark mashing down on his foot, causing bleeding to all of his toes. The shark then comes in for another approach, but this time Tyler saw it coming and managed to poke at it with his spear gun, which is probably what saved his life, because it was at this point that the shark decided to go away and look for another, much easier meal. And that's today's video. If you like today's video, leave a thumbs up and share it with all your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you never have to miss out on any of our interesting videos ever again.